And it's one of those things, unless you've lived it, you don't really understand
No.
the amount of pressure and stress that you put it, because it is your financial security. It's your love for your children is being challenged. You're losing connection with your children because it's all in this chaos. There's a lot going on. It's a very hard place for anyone to be in.
It
Male
is.
or
And
female, makes no difference.
right,
Yeah.
right. And everyone, like male or female, everybody's story is convoluted. Like everything I just told you is like, oh yeah, I forgot to tell her that. You need to know this point. And so
Yeah.
this is what I'm hearing on the phone too is, people are, they've been gaslit, they've been lied to, they owe so much money, they're panicked, they're stressed out how they're going to live in their apartment. So, it's a trauma. You're going to be traumatized.
Insight and awareness, spiritual explorer. Soul intuitive, emotional and spiritual mentor and award-winning author, Lorraine Nylon.
Welcome, explorers, and thank you for being part of the adventure. Today, our guest is Maryann Petri, and she has written a book titled Raised by These Wolves: How Family and Federal Court Are Failing Our Children. And it's full of true stories about people that have gone through the justice system but not received justice, I presume, Maryann.
Oh, unfortunately, yes. And for a lot of parents and litigants, they're just not receiving justice at all, if it
So, and
exists.
what led you to get involved in? Because you've got these are guests from your podcast, Slam the Gavel.
Mhm.
So, can you explain who your guests are, what your podcast's about, and why you wrote this book, all in one
Well,
go?
okay, well, I guess I'll start at the beginning. I wrote the book, Dismantling Family Court Corruption: Why Taking the Kids Was Not Enough, because of what I went through in the family court system. Then I wrote Cry Out for Justice: Poems of Truth, a bunch of collection of poems. And then I wrote Raised by These Wolves: How Family and Federal Courts Are Failing Our Children. And I wrote that because when I launched Slam the Gavel podcast, which was September of 2020, I just started collecting a lot of stories, and I got together with a bunch of parents, and they wanted to include their stories in my book, as well as my federal court story, which was a federal court fail, along with theirs.
Right. So, can you explain your story to our listeners?
Okay, well, do you want to the federal court one or the family court one?
Well, what do you class as a failure? How did Obviously, you've experienced some major traumas in relation to the family court and your personal history, because you're basically campaigning for the justice system to have justice.
Hmm.
So people don't do that if they haven't experienced injustice.
Right. And
Yeah.
I did not get that in the family court, which is called the lower court. And essentially, people that do know my story know that the judge and the opposing attorney were in collusion. They worked in the DA's department for 3 to 4 years before he became a judge. So my ex, his wife worked in the courthouse. So she knew exactly how to judge shop and how to attorney shop. So this was all orchestrated. I could have gone in there with a team of Hollywood attorneys and I still would have fell flat on my face. And then it got to the point where I could not afford attorneys anymore. I had racked up $50,000 on charge cards, and then now I'm representing myself. And the story blossoms from there. And I did have 2 wins in the Superior Court on one on a pension fund and one on child support, which is kind of unheard of to win anything that involves child support. And then, so I decided after I went through all that hell, I because also CPS was involved in this mix as well. So
Okay. So
CPS,
explain CPS, because a lot of our listeners are Australian. So
oh, okay.
that, yeah, we have different terminology for different things.
It's Child Protective Services. Other people call it Child Predator Services. I have a dark sense of humor. I must apologize, but I had 2 back-to-back indications within 4 days of each other. as a registered nurse, I thought I could go back to work, and everyone was thrilled, and this is great. And then I'd call them back and say, you know what? There's another false indication. And
Okay, so
that,
so so my understanding of this is, so you're going through a divorce, there's a custody battle. Do you have the children, or does he have the children?
well, I we divorced at the divorce was final at the end of 2004. So Happy New Year, December 29th, that was signed of 2004. So we co-parented pretty well up until 2013. It got rocky. Uh, I remarried in 2011, and that's what started the whole ball rolling. He remarried in 2007. I set them up on a date. No good deed goes unpunished. So, yes, and I was not sure. I could not I don't remember if I knew she worked in the courthouse, and that wouldn't matter to me at the time because I was just playing matchmaker, okay? Just my advice to everyone is just don't play matchmaker.
Especially for your ex, just walk
Well,
away.
I mean, I just thought, I mean, he was asking me to set him up with nurses I worked with, or is there anyone, and we were co-parenting. I mean, we
Yeah.
were, uh, you know, I thought getting along pretty decently until she inserted herself in the co-parent relationship and in the relationship I had with my children.
And have you found that very common in your guests?
Yes,
This is a regular story? Yeah,
yes.
right.
It's the same scenario, different city, different state, different country.
Right. So the you can be co-parenting quite well, bring in a new partner, and things can change very quickly.
Yes,
Right.
yes.
Okay.
Unfortunately, yes. And, she used veiled threats. I know a lot of people. I have a lot of friends in the courthouse, and I'm friends with all the judges. And then she said she knew a lot of the state troopers, which was right around the corner. And it's like, I didn't know if I should worry or not. But there was the time came when it was time to worry, and I was not expecting that.
So all of a sudden you're getting child protection orders on you and things like
Right.
that. Yeah, right.
Based on uh, it was emotional child abuse. And
Oh,
I
okay.
asked the caseworker, I said, when was the last emotional abuse founded? And she said, well, that was 30 years ago. So isn't it odd? I said, so this is how many cases have you had and have you handled on emotional child abuse? And she said on the stand to me, just this first case. So
Right.
this leads me to believe that she knew the ex-husband's wife. I mean, they all passed in the hallway, I'm sure.
Yeah. Yeah. And where did that lead your life to then? Like, you're fighting for the rights to have your children? Is this y
Yes, that led to well, actually, my oldest left the house, which is fine, she wants to do that. At my house, she had her own ensuite. She didn't have to fight 4 people for a bathroom, but she chose to go live with her father and fight 4 people for a bathroom in the morning. So that's fine, but, then several months later, so from November to the end of February, the ex is doing an emergency petition to remove my sons away from me. And it made no sense. The judge even said, why now? Why didn't you do this back in November? Why are we doing this now? So what he should have done is put the blame and the burden back on the CPS caseworker and said, you made a mistake. They're obviously fine with her. She's a registered nurse, has been one for 23 years. How does a registered nurse go from, working and being active in the community and the basketball games and everything and then suddenly go crazy? And that this
mm,
is the ticket that they all play. It's in a playbook. Um, as soon as there's a divorce or somebody is asking for more child support, suddenly the other party is filing to for full custody. Nobody wants to pay the child support. That's
mm.
usually a factor as well. So from there, I don't know. Do you want the whole blow by
Yeah,
blow?
yeah. Well, it's interesting. Well, it sort of explains why you're such an advocate for, um, you know, for the people that are battling this kind of thing, So, and it is a battle, when you're trying to defend your right as a parent, and unfortunately, if you're a bad parent, you're still going to try and defend the right to be with your
Yeah.
children. So it puts you, even if you're not, it puts you in the same basket as those types of people, and that's a hard place to be if that's not your reality.
Right. And it was good that I had an attorney that knew what to do with these allegations and then an indication of emotional child abuse. And she said, "We've got to get your name cleared so you can work around kids." And I was just under so much shock that here my boys are taken away from me, and now I'm suspended from my job as a nurse, and what I can't be around kids. And my one friend said, "Well, I can get you a job at a sewing store." And the boss there said, with these indications of child abuse, she can't work here until she's exonerated from those. And she didn't get it. My friend didn't get it either until I had to go through another hearing with an attorney, another $2,000 day gone.
Mm.
And luckily, he saw through what was going on and I was exonerated, only to find out 4 days later I was under another indication of emotional child abuse on my middle son, and, I have the whole transcript from that, and what I thought was gold was that the caseworker never made eye contact with me. She constantly looked down at her wedding ring and was spinning that around, and she stated that, the ex had been calling the office 3 to 4 times a week with updates between the mother and the son and the custody hearings, and I have that in transcript. And so I bought that transcript that they wanted $574 US for, but I got them down to 250. But because I
Good
thought
negotiating.
yeah, well, the first transcript when I was exonerated, that was 670. So I thought I was getting a good deal. Uh, and what happened was in the interim, I had to file to the Superior Court. I had to file a brief, 7 of them, and 7 thick reproduced records. And you have to send those all to all parties and these judges at the Superior Court in Pennsylvania. So then I got a letter in the mail saying that no one's going to argue because there's too many briefs. And I was upset because I wanted to have my say, but I think other powers wanted me to shut up. So, in the meantime, there as well, prior to filing the brief, the ex was going after me for child support. And what was going on is I had a very vindictive female judge, and I don't know how stable she herself was. She was continuously changing her hairstyle. One minute she has long hair, the next minute she's having one of those Betty Boop bobs. Okay, and the nurses that I worked with would say, "Be careful with her. It depends on which lipstick she's wearing is how she's gonna roll." So sometimes if she's wearing light pink or it could be peach, you are in trouble.
Right.
So, yeah, she was relentless. She would not stop. She sentenced me to 2 months in prison if I could not pay $2,000 on a certain day, and that, day was actually the day after Mother's Day is when I turned myself into the sheriff's office. I was not arrested. I just had to go in there, and I thought, "I'm gonna show her I'm gonna last the whole 2 months." But, and it's not that bad in there. I'm telling you, it's just not. It's just I was on, to be honest with you, an antidepressant, anti-anxiety, and a mood stabilizer, but isn't that interesting that I never needed these medications until you took my kids away from me?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And, so in prison, everywhere around the world, you don't get your prescribed medications. They withhold them. You have to sign up for a physician to come see you, but that won't happen for 6 weeks. And
Right.
you cannot be taken off of benzodiazepines because it is life-threatening,
You're right.
and it could kill you. So and I knew that. And, I even experienced chest pain in there, and they would not take me to the ER. The guard said, "We don't do that here." And I thought, "Oh, man, I don't know what to do." And I just got I just got worse. I got really sick in there. I had to call my 79-year-old father and ask him for $2,000 and how to get me out of here. I gave him directions on how to do this, and I was released Friday morning.
Right.
And
So this
go
is a
go
long cry from a mother who's a nurse, who's been parenting brilliantly, and now it's all turning upside down, and now you find yourself sitting in a jail cell going, "What just happened?"
Yes, and I was hoping they would put me in solitary confinement because my cellmate would not shut up. She was constantly asking me medical questions. And then she started asking me about, like, "I got this order from the judge. What does that mean?" It's like a DUI, and I'm going, "That's 127 days in the brig." I didn't tell her that, but I'm like, "No."
I'm trying to think. Let me
Yeah,
think.
yeah. And I was getting sick, like, 2 nights before. I mean, I had really gotten sick in front of everybody, and, it was really, it's disgusting, but, I more so wrote it a lot in the screenplay, but not in the book. But I'm surprised it
Because
wasn't in the.
Marianne's book is actually going to be made into well, she's just finished the screenplay that come off her book. So we're looking forward to being able to watch,
Yes.
your story.
Yes, soon we will be putting together a trailer. I have signed on with director Adam Worth. He's an Emmy award-winning director, and, so we will be doing a trailer soon and, proceeding forward with this. So, um and he also has a brilliant mind for storytelling, so I'm sure he can look at my screenplay and add to it, or I said, "You're allowed." So, it was just, an interesting experience in this prison because it's amazing that how these female guards can be horribly mean. The male guards were pretty decent, but the thing is at night, they kept the lights on at all times, and at 2 in the morning, they made this huge announcement that woke me up, and meanwhile, I'm going through withdrawals and feeling nauseated. They're asking people if they need their electric razor to have their legs shaved.
At two
And I'm
o'clock in the morning,
at
right?
2 o'clock, and I'm going, "Wow, you know what? I see why there's prison riots, and you all have my blessing."
So it's definitely changed you, this experience, hasn't it?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. I don't know if it's for the better or for the worst, you know? But, everyone kept saying, "What happened to kids?" What all happened? So that's what drove me to write the first book, which was a sickening experience, and I
Well,
went through.
well, that to be honest with you, that's my big question. How is all this impacting the children? Because all
Well,
of a
now.
sudden, mum's in jail.
Oh, that was
Yeah.
bad. Judges don't realize. I think judges have to get through their head how this damages children. It's on the, ACE scores, uh, the adverse childhood scores. Okay, so one of the question is have you had a parent in prison? Okay, so if a kid scores high on that, like 4 or above, that leads them to eventually having an illness, cancer, anything like that. Um, and both my boys said they have scored high.
Yeah,
And
right.
when and they told me because I had them the weekend when I got out, and I told them, well, they already knew what happened, but they said as soon as they walked into school that Monday, they were already being teased that your mom's in prison
Mm.
and you don't have a mother anymore. And my son got into an altercation with the father. Like, we're talking a physical altercation. He was about, gonna be 16, and the other one was gonna be 15. So these are older kids, and you would think a judge would listen to them, hear what they wanna say. I mean, really, they just wanted to go back to the way things were 50-50. They didn't want that. They wanted they wanted the target parent to suffer and pay the child support. But how can you do that when you don't have a job?
Mm.
And so when I had the boys that weekend and they were asking me about things, I said, "No, I was in the general population." And my oldest said, "Well, but Dad said, he said you'd be, knitting and playing tennis like Martha Stewart." I
Oh
said,
God.
"Oh, like the Wolf of Wall Street? I'm not rich." Okay. And so he was, I don't know what he thought of that, but, the
Because
lies that
there's
they were
ongoing effects for this too, because as those kids get older and they start asking questions, all of a sudden they start seeing what they were told. The pieces don't all join up together. So
Mhm,
all of a sudden they learn to not trust anything. And
mhm,
and the two people that they're relying on, one's attacking the other. So
mhm.
and it doesn't matter. We all, one thing about our parents is they can be terrible. We still want them to love us. And
Right.
when we see them being people that we're scared of, or we know is causing the other person that we love
Mhm.
a lot of
Yeah.
pain, that it's got to affect them.
Mhm,
You're traumatizing your children to try
mhm.
and point score. And at the end of the day, it doesn't, this is what I would struggle if I was you, is like, this doesn't make sense. We were
No.
co-parenting, happy for you to have a new partner. I've moved on. The children are the priority. Let's co-parent together. And
Right.
that doesn't mean you have to have any contact with. You just have to be fair.
Right.
Yeah. And the kids' interests come first. The children come
Mhm.
first. So this is the complete opposite. This is no concern for the children. And
No.
how the long-term ramifications of childhood abuse is huge. And it
Mhm.
comes with people to the day they die. So they can learn to live with it, they can recover from it, but it always stays with them. So the decisions that parents are making to be at each other, the child pays the biggest price for.
And they say, some people say, "Oh, children are resilient." No, they're not. Don't
No,
kid yourself. No,
no.
not with this type of thing,
They can hide it well, but it will come out, and you're changing how they feel about themselves, and you're changing how safe they feel in the world that they live in. and
and
and parents and family and all the rest, close friends and all the rest of that's meant to be your inner sanctum, your safety zone. And when that's disrupted in any form, whether it's childhood abuse, you know these kind of family disputes that are tearing each other apart, then you're breaking the fabric of their foundation.
Mhm,
And you can't really repair that unless you get really honest with them,
mhm.
and you've got to own everything you did. Otherwise, you're going to put, I call it lip service over the top of it, over the top of it. And then the kids, when they get to a certain age, they're going to go, that 1 + 1 is supposed to equal 2. And all of a sudden, it's not adding up. What you're
Right.
saying, what I've seen, how I've observed it. Now you're telling a different story. All that starts ripping at that fabric. So, mum's sitting in jail because dad's new partner has decided we don't want her to be part of our life anymore.
Mhm.
Um, doesn't cut it.
Right. My attorney warned me from the very beginning. She said, "He wants you completely out of their lives." And it wasn't registering because the normal person does not know what family court is. And
No.
I had told my attorney, I said, "I hate coming in here. Okay, I don't like coming in here." And she says, "Oh, really? Because a lot of people enjoy it." And I said, "Well, I don't." So I don't know how we stop this, but there's no stopping a runaway train. When you have a judge and attorney that are BFFs and the opposing attorney is a perpetual liar, as well as your ex, which I never thought this was ever going to happen. And
Yeah.
then, I once I sent now we're going into the summer after being in prison. It wasn't jail, but I was also, I had filed everything, sent all my paperwork into the superior court, but I was also at the same time having support contempt hearings every maybe once a month, every 3 weeks. If I wasn't down at the domestic relations office, I was up in front of a judge and a useless domestic relations attorney who did absolutely nothing. But, anyway, you know, it got to the point where it's like this is making me really edgy. I don't want to go end up back in there. And what happened was I had a heart attack, and it was a
Oh,
major heart attack. And it was, I had 3 stents placed to the LAD. And I had gotten the records from the hospital and I took it to the judge's chambers. I gave it to the secretary to give to the judge to show her I had a heart attack. And a week later, I had another support contempt hearing, and she was not impressed. She gave me a physician verification form, and she said, "You give this to your family doctor, and you have him fill this out. And this is the only thing that's keeping you out of jail today." I'm thinking to myself, wow, I just gave you, you know, all the notes from a cardiologist who's considered God on these nursing floors. Okay. And you're not gonna take it from him that I actually had a heart attack? So, I had that done, and I had it back to her the next day, and, that was end of Nov that was maybe mid-November, but this was still continuing, and so I was waiting to hear back from the Superior Court. December 27th, I was laying on the couch, and, my husband, he is Brad in the book, he gave me this envelope, and I'm going, "Oh, man." I opened it up and it said vacate and remand. And I said, "Oh my God, we won." He says, "What does this mean?" I said, "Well, we kind of won." He said, "Well, what does that mean?" I said, "Well, I'll tell you what, first, take my hand. I need to jump on the couch." And he goes, "What?" I said, "Well, on Oprah, Tom Cruise jumped on the leather couch because he was so happy." I said, "I want to know what that happiness is like." So I did. I jumped. Like, I beat her. I beat that judge. Okay, so then I got off the couch, and I said, "This is what this means. Vacate and remand essentially means you won, but now you have to take this back to the lower court judge, who I put her in the book as Marguerite Spear, not Margarita, but it's Marguerite to be. Um, and you have to go back in front of her." And I told my husband, I said, "I hate to say this, but I have got to have an attorney this time. After a heart attack, I just can't do this just by myself. She won't respect it. She won't respect me. She has never respected me." So I found, thank God, a Supreme Court attorney that was recommended to me by my counselor. And uh, she was excellent. Just excellent. Whenever he made an objection, his perpetual lying attorney, you know, she objected and we were sustained, continuously sustained. And then it just went on and I had to sit down. And then the judge wanted to talk to these 2 attorneys off to the side, like ex parte communications, but in front of you.
right.
And I don't know if you do that in your country where the attorneys go into the judge's chambers and kibitz, and then they come out and they have the case already wrapped up and you don't know it. But,
There's always play. I always say it's a lot's played in the background, people.
oh, yes.
Yeah, a lot's played in the background for,
And so,
most things.
I told my lawyer, I whispered to her, I said, "Get his W-2." W-2 is how much somebody makes. They were so interested in my W-2s, but we never really knew what he made. And so she did. And, she said, "We know he makes well over 100,000 plus a year." And, as a nurse, I was only making at that time $25 an hour per diem. I was never full time. And how I lost my career was of that second indication. So that second indication, this is so convoluted, this story. I must apologize to everyone because it seems like I'm bouncing around, but as we get to a certain area, I've got to fill you in on what had happened. So you have to wait almost 6 months to go before a CPS judge. Okay, so I had a hearing with him December 4th. The hospitals across the nation, possibly, at least at our hospital, had to have all child abuse clearances in by November 23rd. So I couldn't make that deadline because my hearing wasn't till December 4th. So I was involuntarily terminated as a nurse. And
Right.
they hated to lose me because they had me for so many years. I was a good worker. but only to find out I was exonerated again in January.
And
And
how did you while all this is happening, how did you feel about yourself? Like, where was it taking you emotionally within yourself?
oh, I was just getting just so angry. Other people were angry with me. Thank God I had a very good support system with my friends. So, I had my friend Linda, we would go shopping, just go look and laugh at stuff, you know? But, I was so angry about every motion I had to file, and why don't you get this? And why did the child support judge not understand that you cannot work with children when you're under any child abuse indication? I seriously would like to sit down and have a discussion and I know this sounds over the top, but I would like to go after for her, for attempted murder. I really do, because after being in prison, and I did have symptoms of a heart attack happening, could have happened in prison,
Mm.
and then 5 months later actually having a major heart attack, and then she's putting me through more grueling support contempt hearings where my ex ran up to the rail and said, "Your Honor, she's defiant in paying her child support."
And you're
Who
losing
does
your
that?
income. Yeah.
Yeah.
So where are the children while all this is happening?
Unfortunately, they were living with their father. And I
Right.
had them every other weekend, which is very unusual. And you're probably wondering, why would you have your kids unsupervised every other weekend when you are under a child abuse indication? Well, the judge ruled that because and I think it's because the father refused to get a psych eval. The father was refusing to allow me visitation when ordered. He would just run the show like a three-ring circus between the ex and the judge. It was just a three-ring circus. So I think he did give me that. And my attorney said, this is a miracle because no judge, and he said, I've never seen any judge give anyone unsupervised visitation over the weekend with a child abuse indication. And I
Right.
also question what medication the judge was on. And
Okay.
this is very important because the judge died, um, he took my children away March 2nd of 2015. He dies March 2nd of 2017.
Right.
Meanwhile, my son turned 16 at the end of March. I know this is horrible. This is my dark humor coming up, and I totally apologize, but we were all singing happy birthday. He jumps out of his chair and says, "I hate my dad's big, fat, ugly attorney, and I'm glad the judge is dead."
All right. Yeah. But
Yes,
that shows the stress that they're under as well.
right,
You
right.
know, so their
Eh,
world's
eh,
getting turned upside down.
right, and they should know nothing about the court setting. They should know nothing. However, what I did find out was that their family counselor was letting the father read judge's orders and my motions to the kids and causing
Right.
further anxiety to my children.
Yeah. And
And
how
I
are they today? Like, how are your children today?
well, the oldest will not speak to me. I really haven't spoken to her really since 2014.
Okay.
And, the middle one, he's coming around. He's coming out of the brainwashing fog. And the youngest one, thank God they did not bother him. But he's remained faithful. He's like the same kid, the same person. Thank God for that.
Yeah. That's a lot to take as a mother.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and how do you come to terms with that within yourself? What, how do you process that?
Oh, I stay busy, the guitar's on the wall,
Yeah.
knitting, like, like in prison, I knitted and played tennis, right? But, just stay very, very busy.
Right.
Yeah.
And so when you're listening to other people's stories on your podcast, because I know you hear some horrific story. Your story's horrific, let alone the other stories that you're listening to and trying to help.
Mhm.
How does that make you feel? Do you feel frustrated that this is so common?
Yes. I'm
Yeah.
frustrated that this is just gonna go on, and it's gonna continue. We have the Title IV incentives. We've got Title IV-B, that goes for CPS, Title IV-D, that's child support and child support enforcement to get the money. And that means that every dollar a parent pays in child support, a portion of that money goes to the state and also back into the judge's retirement fund, whatever you want to
Oh,
call it.
okay. Yeah,
Uh,
right.
yeah, so there's always money to made off the backs of the non-custodial parent and the children. So Title IV-E is foster care. And this is how they're also collecting money, and it's
And
disgusting.
is that the same system in every state in America? Or is every
Yes.
state? Yeah, it is the same. Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah. Uh,
yeah.
yeah.
And
Right.
a lot of people, were trying to figure out the answer to this. And I interviewed Brian Vukadinovich. He has written the book Rogues in Black Robes. And, he mentioned, some solutions. I interviewed him July 1st, and I just thought it was brilliant. And, you know, um, whatever you get back from a judicial complaint, he said, make a copy of it and send it to your newspaper. Try to get this stuff published. And so, but what I had been doing prior was taking certain, transcript pieces of transcripts, not the whole thing. But when I would complain about an attorney, like on a Google review, I would post these transcript, and people are reading them. And I've had like 20,000 views on judges and attorneys I've had to deal with.
Right.
So they're reading what has been done. If I'm not going to get justice this way, I'm going to get it one way or the other.
You're on a mission.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, you're definitely on a mission because you're sort of dedicating your life to it, like trying to find out what's going on. So our big question for all our guests is what does humanity need to acknowledge and understand for us to evolve? So how do you answer that question?
If we want to evolve, we have to help our fellow man. And you know, talking to people, I also get crisis call. I call them crisis calls. When I was a psychiatric nurse, we had crisis calls, and we had a crisis call logbook. But anyway, I don't have a logbook, but I do talk to parents, mothers, fathers that have had their kids taken away. CPS has come into their lives and essentially lit a fire in their kitchen and then just walk out. And then you're left with a big mess. Essentially what
Hmm.
happened to me too. And how they perjured themselves on the stand. I've heard the same story over and over again because they're all the same. We're
So
just
what
here
do you
to,
mean by perjuring themselves?
well, they put a caseworker on the witness stand and they'll just lie through their teeth.
Okay.
And there's a goal, and that is, they're in collusion. They're either being paid off, or these incentives are so well funded that they're going to say whatever they're going to say to get that kid away from the targeted parent, who will fight and fight to get this child's wishes heard. And the thing is, we've got to help each other, and that's how it stands. And I know sometimes there's a gender war going on where fathers' rights will say it's only happening to us dads. Well, I'm sorry, but the pendulum has swung back. Okay, so for 40 years they were taking kids away from dads. I get it. Okay,
Mm.
and I'm working with a dad who I've interviewed multiple times, Jim Schock. He's on my podcast multiple times. His child is living with his ex-girlfriend and an 8-count felon, her boyfriend.
Mm.
Okay, so he deserves to have custody of that child, seriously. The judge will not look at evidence. Okay, so judges aren't looking at evidence, and this is now going after mothers. Okay, so these judges figured for years we've taken them away from the fathers. Now it's the mother's turn. And also, essentially, they're going after everyone. And I always push that we should unite as parents. I don't care if you're mother, father, what happened. Let's all work together and try to
Mm.
come up with a solution on this.
Mm. Yeah, definitely. And it's interesting because it's back to that, regardless whether it's the mother or the father, is that, you know, as I sort of explain to people, 50% of your DNA, and
Mhm.
remember that they're part of them as well. So as long as they're not in any harm,
Mhm.
it's different if they are in harm.
Right.
Which you hear those stories too, where people know
Oh.
they've got to hand the child over, and they're like, I know that his father's a pedophile, or I know that his brother's a pedophile, and I do not want to hand this child over, and no one's listening to me. So there's so many different elements that can be happening for people when
Mhm.
nothing's. It's always complex when it,
Oh,
when it,
definitely.
yeah,
I've
yeah,
heard judges, take the child away from the targeted fit parent and give them to the abuser, and then, threaten the child and say, "If you go back to your mother or father, I'm gonna put you in a juvenile detention center."
right,
What
yeah.
has happened to this nation? I don't know. But that's
Well,
why I
yeah. Oh, well, I think it's frightening because we are actually, the systems that are meant to be there to protect the children are also traumatizing them. So,
right.
and it is so complex. If you talk to people that are working, potentially for the CPS and things like that, I know I've spoke to a few here in Australia in our services, and they're like, we walk in and we're just horrified at what some children are experiencing, and
Mhm.
our hands are a bit tied because we got to try and prove it. So it doesn't matter which side of the fence you're sitting on. There's all these complex stories, but the ones paying the
Right.
price are the children.
Mhm.
So it's
And that
that's where it's sickening because of that.
definitely, and that's why I put together Raised by These Wolves, because this is what these judges and the CPS caseworkers that are lying and what they are doing to children instead of helping them and helping families reunite and helping them with housing and things that they need, like they should be doing their jobs and they're not, but they're handing these kids over, and the judge will take whatever the caseworker says. He just takes it for gospel truth and just does what he or she says. So that kid is essentially being raised by wolves, because
Mm,
I know my kids, they haven't learned the niceties of, like, "Gee, it's grandpa's birthday. I'm gonna get grandpa a birthday card and maybe something little."
yeah.
They're not, that thought process is not there, because they're now given to a parent who really doesn't care about them. They just want that child support money to
Mm,
fix up their deck or take a trip with their new spouse.
yeah.
So the
Which
kids
is
it
which is really narcissistic when you look, because that's where I sort of chime in. I've dealt with a lot of people that have been in narcissistic relationships, and when it comes to the children, they're beside themselves because the child's being fed a lot of misinformation, and
Mhm.
then but they can see through it. They can see the purpose of it, and then later on in life, when that child sort of starts questioning them, they often do the same treatment to the child, or you know, adult child, and all the rest of it. So when you're dealing with that, you have to be indifferent to the child to go through all this to feel like you've had a win. Do you
Yeah,
know what I mean? Like, yeah, I want the new deck. I'm going to get the money from her or him,
right.
or I'm trying to sustain my lifestyle this way. So I'm
Yes.
going for more, 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 more.
And
So
I found, yeah, this is
yeah,
sickening because that parent usually makes the most money over the other parent, yet they want more out of that parent. And I've talked to so many people that are dealing with this. It's like, "Hey, I've lost my job now because of you, and now, you expect all this money, and it's not even going towards the kids' braces." And I have to tell you,
yeah,
judges don't
that's
even, yeah, the judges
yeah,
don't care if the kids have braces, and, that's a health concern. Your
yeah,
teeth
yeah.
are a health concern.
Yeah, and I've heard many people, clients that are paying their child support, and it's putting them in a financially stressed position to do it,
Mhm.
and then they're still being asked to put more towards things like braces and school fees, and their argument is, but isn't that coming out of my maintenance?
Yeah.
And it's like, no, 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 that's an extra, so, and some of them are really frightened that if they don't do that, they won't get to spend time with their children. So
Mhm.
it's kind of, they feel a bit blackmailed. If I don't do it, and there's a dispute, and then I don't see the child, and all that sort of stuff. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's very, very
Yeah.
complicated. So if we've got listeners that are actually experiencing this and seen as, we're going to call you a veteran of it.
Oh, yeah.
What's your best advice for them to deal with themselves and their emotions while they're going through these kind of, complicated experiences?
Well, I have heard other parents say, "I burned out my family. I've lost friends because this is all I talk about." And I guess my advice is, you know, just talk for 10 to 15 minutes about what happened and then move on to the next topic. So
Good
people
advice, yeah.
and your spouse aren't getting burned out. My husband was lucky because he worked out of town because he had to take jobs at that point to make up for my lost salary. He had to take more higher paying jobs out of the state so he could make up for my lost salary and we could keep our house and our living expenses
Yeah.
while I'm swiping a charge card at a lawyer's office.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
That's, I mean, yeah, and it's one of those things, unless you've lived it, you don't really understand
No.
the amount of pressure and stress that you put it, because it is your financial security, it's your love for your children is being challenged. You're losing connection with your children because it's all in this chaos. There's a lot going on. It's a very hard place for anyone to be in.
It
Male
is.
or
And
female, makes no difference.
right,
Yeah.
right, and everyone, like male or female, everybody's story is convoluted, like, everything I just told you is like, "Oh, yeah, I forgot to tell her that. You need to know this point." And so
Yeah.
this is what I'm hearing on the phone too is, people are they've been gaslit, they've been lied to, they owe so much money, they're panicked, they're stressed out how they're gonna live in their apartment. So, it's a trauma, you're gonna be traumatized,
Yeah,
and
you are gonna be traumatized.
you just have to just stay busy, try some cheap hobby you've
Yeah.
never tried before. I
Yeah.
try to stay busy.
Yeah, definitely. And the one of the things you said there is you are going to be traumatized, and don't judge yourself for being traumatized, because it is a traumatic experience. As soon as
Right.
you don't feel safe, and if you feel like people are being very indifferent to the reality of what's happening, let alone
Mhm.
to you, but to the reality of it, and if you feel like there's a truth you can't get on the table, no one's listening, that is
Right,
traumatizing, because it
right.
takes away any sense. We think that truth should be like a boundary. Like, once
Mhm.
we hit the truth, that should open the doors that it gets dealt with from the truth. And as you're a testament to prove that the truth can be on the table and it can be completely ignored. So the
Oh,
door doesn't open. It gets padlocked. So, and once you realize that's happening, like, then that's when you know that you're in an injustice situation, and that
definitely, and
traumatizes us. Yeah.
definitely, especially for someone who's a pro se litigant. When I told my father, "I've gotta do this myself," he goes, "Well, you know what they say about pro se litigants, it's like they're all crazy." Well, they've been calling me crazy for years in that courtroom. That's actually a kangaroo court because really a family courtroom, it's not real. Okay, it's not like a civil courtroom or a criminal courtroom where you've got a jury. It's not real. It's all actually, and I was thinking this morning or a couple mornings ago, that it's actually a stage. And I've actually seen this in another friend. I was sitting in on another friend's courtroom hearing, and these attorneys were like play acting, and they already had the case decided, but they're ramping it up and just being emotional and waving their hands. Like my opposing attorney, he was always like this. He would always just be very dramatic. And so, what you have to learn as a pro se, you have to learn from your enemy. So I studied him and I thought, well, I'm going to do what he's doing. He's winning, right? I'm going to start doing this. Well, your honor, you know,
For
attorney
those that
Blood.
can't see, she's Marianne's throwing her hands in the
Yeah,
air.
Evita
Yeah,
Peron, Evita,
yeah,
yes, Evita Peron, and so, like, the one hearing, he expected me to have all my physicians in the courtroom within 24 hours. It doesn't work that way. He has to subpoena them if he wants them. So I said, "Your Honor," as I'm raising my hands, if he wanted my physicians here, he should have subpoenaed them. And if he feels, I can be a nurse, then we should go back to 50-50. And therefore I'm not crazy. And she wouldn't look at me, but she did nod her head.
Yeah. So you even had to prove your sanity.
Oh, definitely. I had a pristine psychological evaluation. I don't know what his was. I never even got a copy of it. As a pro se, I should have gotten a copy of it.
Yeah.
But I don't think it was ever done, personally.
Well, what I can say to you, Maryann, is that your director is going to have a lot to play with as he tells your story.
Yes. It's
I'm
gonna be like
sorry that
that.
happened to you. I'm sorry. I feel for you. I really do. I'm sorry that's been your experience, and I feel for your children, which I know they're growing up, but it's like, yeah, the ramifications from this experience is huge.
Mhm.
So yeah, I'm sorry you experienced that. So
I am too. And
yeah,
I don't know what to say.
yeah. There's not much else you can. So I think it's time for us to play Flip the Book. So would you like book 1, 2, or 3?
Um, uh, I don't know, book 1?
Book 1, okay. Yeah. It's all right. There's no wrong answer.
Okay.
So you've got 1 to 188 pages to pick from. So just let yourself feel a number.
Oh, geez. How about page, we'll say 35.
35.
I
Yeah. Okay. So it's actually a page with dot points on it, and there are 7 dot points on there. So spirituality is not. And would you like one point 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7? Which
I'll go
point
with
would you
4.
like? 4. Spirituality is not a belief system that organizes the way you think or tells you what is important. It is discovering the importance of your integrity and knowing what you value. That's, I would presume, part of the lessons that you've had to learn during your experiences, that your
Mhm.
integrity would have been something that you would have had to have held on tightly to.
Oh, definitely. You fought like a lion for.
Yeah. And how do
Because
you feel about integrity? Actually, I'm going to grab the other book. I'm going to
okay.
no,
Integrity
no, no,
is
no, no. I'm going to join the two together. Only like if
oh, okay.
yeah, because it's like, to me, integrity was something that you used as an anchor as you were going through your experiences, and as you're still going through those experiences when you're working with others and helping them. So every story you're hearing would be triggering some part of their story, would be triggering some part of your story. So,
Yeah.
and you're still in the process of trying to heal all that, which is, it takes a while. So I'm
Ah,
gonna,
if it will.
yeah, yes, it will. Well, it'll be with you forever. You can't change history. So you're being very strong about it, but to me, it's like integrity was the thing that you needed to anchor to, because it was
Mhm.
the one thing they couldn't take away from you. Right?
Exactly.
They could frustrate you, and there's probably days that you were like, I don't like how I'm behaving, I don't like how I'm thinking, but your boundary was when it hit you. You didn't let yourself go past that integrity point for yourself. So, and that's a very, very good thing. So,
Well, right. Right. Even
you
as a nurse, you had to have a lot of integrity.
yeah, yeah, definitely. So, what do we got? One, two. I've got 4 paragraphs about integrity. So, give me a number 1 to 4.
4 is my lucky number.
Right, we'll go with that. Integrity creates wholeness within your soul, facilitating the bravery required to unshackle the chains of oppression that cause you to be part of the inequality within life. It also creates the aspiration to operate from fair mindedness and objectively observe with the willingness to be accountable for your actions, beliefs, and the words you speak. So, does that sum up integrity for you?
Most definitely. When I was on the witness stand and the judge said, "Was everything the CPS caseworkers say a fallacy?" And I said, "Yes, everything she said is a fallacy." And he yelled at me and said, "You are appalling on the stand." And towards the end of the hearing, he says, "I don't care if you wanna stand up for yourself," because I explained, I'm a nurse. I stand up for my patients. They need medications, I have to call the doctor. If they're upset with the doctor, I have to call the doctor. I said, "I stood up for my patients. I'm gonna stand up for myself," and he didn't like it.
Yeah. The only people that don't like you holding your boundaries and having the importance of backing your own integrity are those that want to smash it and manipulate it and pull you apart.
Mhm,
So otherwise, they would have met you with respect.
mhm,
You know, if someone's operating from their integrity and they can explain why they're doing things, if someone's got a reason, whether you agree with it or not agree with it, if they can explain and tell you the importance of that, so which is what you did. It's like, hang on, I'm trained to do this. I know how important it is. And what integrity is saying is that I am looking for the truth and I'm trying to find the best outcome for not only me, but everyone else. And if we get to the truth of something, we'll probably find a solution. We may not be happy with it, but it is
mhm,
probably going to be the best solution because we've operated from the truth. Why ever there's deception, manipulation, and vindictiveness, there's
mhm,
no integrity, and it becomes about point scoring.
mhm.
Who gets the win? But once you lose integrity, what sort of win is it? Yeah,
Right, and this is what they do to pro se litigants who can't afford attorneys anymore is they just try to break you. And one of my friends said, "That opposing attorney's wondering why he hasn't broken you yet, because you just keep coming back." And I think that's how I got my win at the Superior Court on the child support is, "We gotta fix this.
yeah,
I'm gonna keep
yeah,
coming back until we fix this."
yeah. That's it. Well, I look forward to watching the film about your story, and I love the title, right? Raised by these wolves. It does grab your attention. So, and I hope everything works out really well for you in the future.
Thank you so much, Lorraine. Thank you.
No worries.